village, Currie, nestled under the shadow of the Pentland Hills, where the wind carries whispers older than the stones themselves. It's March 20th, 1833, and a child is born, pale, fragile, with eyes that seem to pierce the veil of the ordinary. His cradle rocks in the night, though no hand touches it, and the villagers cross themselves, murmuring of curses or gifts too strange to name. His mother, a seer, sees light around him, a glow that promises wonders, or warns of something darker. This is no ordinary boy, but a question mark in human form, destined to step beyond the edges of what we know into a realm where furniture dances and shadows speak. His name is Daniel Dunglas Home, and his life is a door ajar, inviting us to peer into the unknown. We'll see you on the inside.
You are now entering the realm of the freaky deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality, about time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically.
Folks, welcome back to the Freaky Deaky. I need to preface today's episode with the fact that I have not read this script in a while. So, it's been a while.
Good luck.
So it may be somewhat confusing to me as well. We're learning together is what I'm trying to say here. And if you are new to this experience, and yes, it is an experience to listen to this show, you're going to want to go ahead and follow us on social media wherever you are at. We are at that as well, at Freaky Deaky Pod. Be sure to leave a review if you enjoy what you hear. And if you don't enjoy what you hear, you can hit the bricks without saying anything. Isn't that a novel concept? Wow. That's what you can do. With that aside, you can buy the single greatest merch of all time at thefreakydeaky.com as well, and support the show in a multitude of ways if you really want to keep us doing all this. I'm joined as always by Christian. He sits over there and he disbelieves.
Sometimes. Most times.
It is what it is. That's fine, honestly. I feel like the roles have switched a lot for us over the past 5 years. Remember when early on you would get nothing but just shitty comments about you? People would be on YouTube or whatever and be like, this guy blows. Why doesn't he like ghosts? You know?
Did they say that?
Probably. Remember, YouTube does filter out a few of them from our delicate eyes, but it switched recently, and I feel like the past 4 to 6 months it has been exclusively people shitting on me for whatever reason. Or like I think part of it is also people assume our dynamic, like our relationship, and assume that I'm being incredibly rude to you.
Which is funny because
I haven't changed, right? We've been doing that the whole time, and you haven't been particularly disturbed by any of it. It's just the way things go, right?
Being rude to me generally is just not worth it.
Yeah, it has no effect on the man, right?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you're being rude? I'm going to annoy you with niceness.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. But like, I don't know if people fully grasp the fact that that's kind of, if I'm being genuinely rude to you, you could be like, hey, cut that out. But if we're joking around in a podcast, like I don't think people understand the context of what this is. So people just like to shit on me because they're like, oh, well, no, how dare you speak to... I'm like, first of all...
Here's the way I look at it. Maybe that person's just having a bad day. And when I have a bad day, I just get quieter because...
That's the way to do it.
I don't trust what's coming out of my mouth if I'm a little annoyed with something. It takes a lot to get me annoyed, but
sure,
I know to shut up.
Yeah. And people have caught me at the worst time, being nicotine free or whatever by the end of us recording these 2 episodes, it'll probably be a full 3 days.
I've been nervous for 3 days.
Yeah. Which means that officially all the nicotine is out of my body. And now it's all just in your head. Now it's just a head game. Hey, you've been manipulated to believe that this is helping you with your stress, but it's actually causing it.
You want to hear something somebody told me about nicotine, how they train themselves to... One of my coworkers has a friend who trained himself to go to the gym by putting Zyn pouches in just before he goes into the gym. So he used the nicotine to make him look forward to the gym, like a Pavlovian modern experiment.
Very strange. And now is he addicted?
Yeah, but he's fit.
But he's buff as hell.
Yeah.
That's all that matters, you know?
And Zen doesn't have all the, same with the gum I chew. It doesn't have all the stuff that cigarettes and all that have. So
Sure.
I just thought that was fascinating and a smart way to rewire your brain.
Sure. If you want to get addicted to a drug in the process, by all means.
Now, there's worse things to be addicted to. If it's just nicotine, he's not smoking. Remember, he's not doing any of the cancer stuff.
Christian, I read the book, okay? I don't
On
wanna-
nicotine?
Yeah.
I haven't read that book.
On nicotine itself, yes. Anyway, guys, we're not here to talk about why I may or may not have been very angrily
Touchy?
typing away at people on our YouTube 6 to 8 weeks ago. That's not why we're here, okay? We're here to talk about Daniel Dunglas, weirdest middle name of all time, Hume.
I will say that when I did see the comment that got you fired up, I was like, it must be the loss of nicotine.
No, I think it really rubs, like, I'm at the point now where shit just rubs me the wrong way, and I'm just not going to hold back when I...
You got to not let people know.
No, the only way to do that is if you exclusively manage comments and all that shit, and I just lay back and, you know, kick my feet up.
That maybe that's what has to happen.
Yeah, in the near future, I'll just stop responding to people. And people, if they want to talk to us, they can exclusively go to the Facebook group and talk to us there, and everything
That's
else
the
is
best
just gonna
place
be...
because the cool people are there.
Sure. That is true. And if that is not you, then you must not be very cool, huh?
But you can always become cool
Sure.
by jumping in, being with the cool kids.
Or by visiting holler.baby/thefreakydeaky and making Christian say some weird things for $9.
I am so up for weird things.
It is true. The man is up for weird things.
Speaking of weird things.
Should we get into this?
Yeah, we should. But remind me to bring up this weird thing that happened at the store today.
Wow. A lot of weird things flying around, and I'm not sure I'm ready for it, but that's fine. Guys, now would be a great time to tell you if you are interested in just getting to the episode when it starts, you can find that in the timestamps and you can shut the hell up about it everywhere else.
Chill out.
So,
Chill out.
so with that being said, check the timestamps right now. It's going to say somewhere between minute 8.5 and 10.5. Episode starts here. And then you can be like, oh, he saved me time so I don't have to complain about things. Isn't that nice? Anyway.
Send Scott virtual hugs.
No, I'm fine. Guys, by the time this comes out, it's like 2 months later. So your boy is great. Not great 2 months ago, but it's fine. Anyway, let's get into Daniel Hume. Let's get all up into him.
Let's not.
Daniel Dunglas Hume entered the world on March 20th, 1833 in the small village of Currie.
Did you say is that one the Dunglas name right? Is it Donglas?
Donglas? No, it's not Donglas. It's Dunglas.
So he has no poop?
It's not less, it's last. Dunglass.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Douglas?
That's kind of what I'm like, why didn't they just say Douglas?
Maybe that's the way Douglas used to be spelled. Where are we at?
Scotland.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot.
Donglas.
Your land?
What's that?
Scotland?
It is my land, yes. March 20th, 1833, in the small village of Currie. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Just outside of Edinburgh. His birth came during a harsh winter in a modest home shadowed by the rugged Pentland Hills. His father, William Hume, and I want to say home every time because it's spelled with an O. I should have just typed it U because then my brain's not going to be like, no, it's the word home. I'm like, no, fight it. It's Hume. Anyway, his father, William Home, damn it, was a laborer scraping by on meager wages, rumored to be the illegitimate son of the 10th Earl of Hume. Classic stuff, really. A whispered family secret that lent Daniel an air of faded nobility. Oh, yeah.
You're a bastard.
Wow. His mother, Elizabeth or Betsy McNeil, was a woman of quiet intensity, known in the village as a seer who could glimpse in the future in the flicker of a candle flame. Her own mother had been a visionary too, and locals often crossed the street to avoid her unsettling gaze. This lineage of second sight would later frame Daniel's life, though as a child he knew little of its weight. Poverty forced Betsy to give Daniel up shortly after his birth. His sister Mary Cook and her husband took him in, raising him as their own in a cramped cottage where the wind howled through the cracks. At 3, Daniel nearly died of whooping cough, his frail body trembling as Betsy sat by his side whispering prayers.
I thought it was whooping cough.
Whooping. Maybe it's whooping. I said whooping, you said hooping. We're just going to call it whooping. I think we solved it, actually.
Yeah, see, we
does sound-
compromise.
Yeah, whispering prayers. She later told him she'd seen a vision of him surrounded by light, a sign he was meant for something extraordinary. When he was 9, the Cooks sailed across the Atlantic to Greenville, Connecticut, seeking a better life. Daniel arrived in America pale and thin, with wide blue eyes that seemed to see beyond the horizon. In Greenville, strange things began to happen. Neighbors whispered that the Cook's furniture shifted in the night, and once, a neighbor boy swore he saw Daniel's shadow stretch across the wall without a source. Mary Cook, a stern Presbyterian, grew uneasy. She taught him hymns and scripture, hoping faith would anchor him. Probably didn't work based on the rest of this episode, but when he was 13, he woke screaming from a dream of his cousin's death. A cousin who, miles away in Scotland, had indeed died that very night. Word of this spread, and villagers started calling him the boy who sees. Wow, worst nickname of all time. By 17, the disturbances intensified. Loud raps echoed through the house, and a table tipped over during supper. Mary, convinced he was cursed, threw him out, leaving him to fend for himself in a world that didn't yet know his name. Interesting. You haven't heard of this kid before?
I have not.
Yeah, I believe when I first found it, I was also surprised. I'm like, damn, how did I not ever hear about this dude?
Because he's a witch?
It really do be like that. I don't get how sometimes this flavor can be my favorite, and sometimes it's the absolute worst. Like my tongue, some days is just like, hey, you like this. And then the next is like, nah, I never taste that again.
I don't understand.
Who does, really, Taking a lot of chances, whipping this thing out in the middle of reading a script. But
you know what's funny is that guy complaining, that was the script you got way high on.
Yeah.
And I was like,
no, you know what it is, though? It's never just like, oh, man, you were out of it. It's never just that. It's always like insinuating that I'm a dumbass or something like that. And that is what gets me. I'm like, we're Christian. You and I don't actually have issues with each other. We're not against each other in this, right? We're not fighting each other. We're literally sharing stories and just believe different things. And so, but it comes down to people just have to insult instead of just goof off, which is, I prefer people just goof off. Call me weird things. I'm fine with that. But if you genuinely just insult me for no reason, I'm like, no, it just doesn't sit well with me and I have to speak up.
Well, society has trained us or brainwashed us into thinking different opinions
means you're stupid. Yeah.
Or, yeah, exactly. They think, oh, I don't agree with them. They're stupid.
Yeah. And that's just annoying. When our entire goal for this podcast was to bring people together and to just have a good time and laugh and be like, ha, 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 he, he. It's fine. So, yeah, seeing weird comments like that, and I hate honestly harping on it. I would prefer not to even talk about it ever again. But some inside baseball into how my mind works when I see that shit, it's one thing if you're goofing off and having a good time, but if you're genuinely siding with me and calling Christian a moron, or siding with Christian and calling me a moron, it's a net negative for the show in general. So just, think about what you're saying. That's all I'm saying.
I'll find you.
He will find you.
Jeff, just like Jeff White, I owe him from my hockey days back in California. I told him he took out one of my players that doesn't play like that. I'll get you next time we play. I had never played against him.
Yeah, he's still out there looking. When he crossed the street, he's like, is Christian over there?
He probably is forgotten by now, but if I ever put on skates in California and he plays, I'm going to drop him and be like, remember?
He's going to be like, who are you? Who is this crazy man?
No, he knows me. He and his wife his wife and I coached against each other for years. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah, getting back to, and also you can, if there's tangents in the timestamps, you can see when it gets back on. So you don't have to complain about that either, okay?
Oh, you know what? One of my future comments in certain situations is going to be Thumper.
Please, no more Disney references for the show.
Do you understand why
I understand where you're going with that, but instead just piss them off by being like, hey, really glad you liked it. Super stoked you enjoyed the show. Thanks. If people are like, wow, this sucks, be like, oh, so glad you like it.
Yeah.
So glad.
I'm not letting somebody make me think about a rude comment for more than a second.
Yeah, well, that makes one of us. It's fine. We're going to get back to Daniel's life while he steps into the spotlight a bit. I
still don't even know what's going to happen to Daniel.
I don't either. I told you, I wrote this, or this was from ages ago, and this is the first time I'm dusting it off. Anyway, Daniel's path to fame began in 1851 at 18 when he returned to his biological family in Waterford, Connecticut. His mother had died years earlier, worn out by hardship, and his father was a distant figure, remarried, and uninterested.
Didn't his mother give him up for adoption to begin with?
Yeah. Classic stuff. When you really sit back and look at it. Alone but determined, Daniel found refuge with a local family eager to host him after hearing of his gifts. One evening in their parlor, he sat with a small group, eyes closed, and the room filled with sharp knocks that spelled out a dead relative's name in a code only the family knew. The story raced through the town, and soon wealthy patrons like Elihu Ives or Eves, Elihu. Wow, people just couldn't have normal names back then, huh? Elihu Ives, a silk merchant, invited him to their homes. Unlike the era's traveling showmen, Daniel refused money for his seances, insisting his purpose was spiritual, not profit. Ives and others housed and fed him, marveling as he made chairs tremble or summoned voices from thin air. In 1852, he moved to Springfield, Massachusetts, where he met Dr. David Wells, a Harvard professor intrigued by the unseen. During one session, Wells watched a heavy oak table slide across the floor as Daniel sat still, hands folded. Wells, a skeptic, checked for wires or magnets, damn, that would have to be a massive magnet, but found nothing. That year, Daniel also tried studying theology in Newburgh, New York, dreaming of a preacher's life, but his lungs, already weak from childhood, betrayed him, forcing him back to the seance circuit. Betrayed by your lungs, huh? Happens to the best of us. Not your boy anymore, though. That's fine. By 1854, he was a sensation in New England, drawing crowds who saw him as a bridge to lost loved ones. One woman, grieving her son, wept as Daniel described the boy's freckled face, a detail he couldn't have known. Yet fame came with a cost. His health worsened, coughing fits leaving him bedridden for days. Doctors warned he might not survive another winter. In 1855, a group of admirers raised funds to send him to England, hoping the change would save him and launch him onto a grander stage. Wow, so that's like the GoFundMe of the 1800s. Very cool. I didn't realize they were crowdsourcing back in the day.
Also, you're going to send a Scottish guy to England back in the day?
Back in the day, no less.
They weren't big fans of each other.
They really do be like that. But if you got parlor tricks or whatever, then hey, maybe you can make friends with anyone.
You called it parlor tricks.
I did that for you. So Daniel arrived in London in April 1855, a gaunt 22-year-old with a suitcase and a letter of introduction from an American friend. Wow, just getting shipped off with a letter. This is my friend Daniel. You are reading a letter you found in his pocket, no doubt. He checked into Cox's Hotel on Jermyn Street. Weirdest spelling of German I've ever seen.
How's it spelled?
Jermyn. Unless it's Germine.
Don't know, man.
Anyway, where the owner, William Cox, a spiritualism buff, welcomed him like a son. Within weeks, Cox invited Robert Owen, the aging reformer, to meet him. Owen, then 84, sat transfixed as Daniel made a candlestick float across the room, its flame steady. "This is no trick," Owen wrote later. "It's a glimpse of eternity." Word spread, and soon Daniel was a guest in England's finest homes. In 1856, he traveled to Florence, Italy, at the invitation of Elizabeth Barrett Browning and her husband, Robert.
That name...
Barrett Browning?
I feel like I know the... Go ahead.
Perhaps you do. Elizabeth, frail and mystical, adored him, describing how a harp played itself in her salon as Daniel watched. Robert, however, scowled through the seance, later penning a scathing poem, Mr. Sludge, the Medium. Wow. Robert goes pretty hard, turns out, mocking Daniel as a charlatan. The couple's feud over him became literary gossip. That same year in Paris, Daniel performed for the French court at the Tuileries Palace. Tuileries Palace. One of those. He sat with Napoleon III, who asked about his uncle's spirit. A cold breeze swept the room, and a curtain billowed as if pushed by an unseen hand, leaving the emperor pale.
Napoleon's in hell.
Yeah, so that Robert dude was clearly just jealous.
So I was there. He and his wife were poets. In case you didn't get that from what you said next, but I knew I'd recognize the name.
Mr. Sludge, the Medium. Sounds like that
doesn't sound very
the slam piece.
Yeah, also not very poetic, Mr. Browning.
The Medium. Do better, you know?
Couldn't even make any of that rhyme.
Yeah.
Fucking.
You had 4 opportunities.
You're no Dr. Seuss.
Classic stuff. Anyway, in 1857, Daniel visited Holland, hosted by Queen Sophia in The Hague. She asked him to contact her late father, and during the seance, a heavy bronze clock lifted off its pedestal and settled gently on the floor. Sophia clutched her pearls, classic, whispering, "It's him." Back in England, he met Charles Dickens at a dinner party in 1858. Dickens, ever the skeptic, challenged him to prove his powers. Daniel obliged. A wine glass rose, tilted as if to toast, then returned to the table. Dickens grunted, unimpressed, muttering about parlor games, but didn't explain it away.
I like this Dickens guy.
Classic Dickens, you know?
Little did we know he was friends with the ghost of Christmas past.
They really do be that way. Daniel's performances grew bolder as he crisscrossed Europe. In 1859 in Vienna, he held a seance for Archduke Johann of Austria. As candles flickered, a grand piano shuddered, its keys plinking an eerie tune. The Archduke, a practical man, laughed nervously, saying, "I'd pay a fortune to know how you did that." In 1860, in St. Petersburg, he awed a group of Russian nobles by stretching his arm until it seemed to reach the ceiling, then snapping it back to normal. A doctor present measured his pulse, steady as ever, and shook his head in disbelief. Isn't this weird so far? Like, never heard any of these stories. Not a single one.
I have not heard any of these, and he's been in places that I've paid attention to.
Some pretty popular spots. That's why I was kind of blown away about this whole thing. I don't, like, these aren't just, one-off magic tricks. This is some weird stuff that this dude is seemingly able to just pull off willy-nilly. One chilling night in 1861 in a Scottish manor near Aberdeen. Isn't that interesting? Daniel sat with a dozen guests, including a local minister. He fell into a trance, and a voice, not his own, spoke through him, recounting a shipwreck from 20 years prior. An elderly woman gasped, recognizing her brother's tale, lost at sea in 1841. The minister called it God's work or the devil's. Those are the options. Unable to decide. He's like, it might be God, but it could also be the devil, I guess. Yeah, who knows? In 1863 in Brussels, he amazed a crowd by holding a lit lantern to his face, the flame licking his own skin without a mark. A Belgian journalist wrote, "He courts the impossible, and it obeys." Scientists flocked to him. In 1864, John Elliotson, a London physician, invited Daniel to his home. Elliotson rigged a scale beneath a table, expecting fraud. When the table rose, the scale stayed flat. No human force lifted it. Elliotson published his findings, calling it, quote, "a mystery beyond physics." Yet doubters persisted. In 1865, a Cambridge professor, Henry Sidgwick, attended a seance and saw a book float from a shelf. He suggested mass hypnosis, but couldn't prove it. Weird. So what do you think of this dude so far?
Parlor games.
Classic.
But it is fascinating that he's going to all these places and doing all these things.
Yeah. I was looking for someone that spent their life trying to prove that the supernatural is real. And this was like the one thing that came up from that I actually looked into. I was like, oh, wow. So it's kind of wild, man.
It's funny, he doesn't take money, at least earlier in the story he didn't. But the perks of traveling to all these different countries and hanging out with all these rich people must have been nice.
Yeah, I imagine that would be pretty nice. You're like, you don't got to pay me. Just, hey, where's the escargot,
And just because Robert Browning wrote some crap about him, maybe Robert was jealous that the wife actually liked this guy instead of Robert.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It seemed more like jealousy fueled than actually not liking the guy.
Yeah.
When he went to bed, he was probably like, damn, that guy was cool. I hate him. He was so cool.
I wish I could make things float.
How do you think he did it?
I don't know.
Do you think he's just a magician?
I think there's a good chance that these are tricks, but the fact that he's doing it in so many different places and in different ways is pretty fascinating.
And like locations that he's not even familiar with. That's the big thing. Like you don't get the chance to set up some crazy trick or anything like that. Like you just at this place, the harp starts playing itself, or this thing floats off the table, or wine glass just looks like it's about to cheers someone else, but it's floating in the air. Like I don't know, man. It's weird. It's too weird for me.
But the guy that brought us Scrooge was not impressed.
And that kind of checks out a little bit if you think about Scrooge, the character,
Right.
So maybe there was some self-reflection going on from Dickens while he was...
I always felt that story was self-reflection in a way.
Do you?
Maybe not, or maybe it just seemed really personal. Maybe not just self-reflection. Maybe that was somebody in his family.
Yeah. A little too close to home.
Right.
Daniel's personal life was a quiet counterpoint to his public spectacle. In 1858, at 25, he met Alexandrina de Kroll, wow, too many syllables, a 17-year-old Russian beauty during a trip to St. Petersburg.
Even back then, they were going to Russia to get brides.
That's what you do, Her father, a general, disapproved, but Alexander Dumas, the novelist,
Three Musketeers.
Alexandre Dumas. Alexander Dumas, the novelist, championed their love, hosting their wedding in a lavish ceremony. Damn, this dude literally knew everyone.
Yeah,
That is insane. That is insane. Their son, Grisha, was born in 1859, a frail child like his father. Alexandrina's warmth steadied Daniel, but tuberculosis claimed her in 1862, leaving him a widower at 29. Wow.
She became a vampire.
That's what happens. He retreated to Rome, grieving, and briefly joined a Catholic monastery seeking solace.
What about his kid?
Yeah, fuck the kid, No, it's fine. Grisha? What's up with Grisha? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's a question everyone's asking themselves, like, where the hell is Grisha? And the answer is nobody knows. The monks expelled him when chairs began rattling during prayers. Like, all right, man, you got to get out. All right, take your little crazy parlor tricks with you, moving furniture and whatnot. Child's play. We work for the Lord here. In 1871, he married again to Julie de Glumeline, a Russian heiress he met in Paris. Hey, it rhymes. Julie, elegant and devout, shared his belief in the spirit world. They settled in an airy villa near Nice. Nice?
Niece.
Ah, damn it. I always second guess my second guessing. I should stick with it.
Wait, I have a question.
I was just about to reveal Grisha again. Are you sure?
You're Italian, right?
This feels like it's going to be an attack on me personally.
Never mind.
Arrivederci, all right? Yeah. So they settled in an airy villa near Nice, where Grisha grew up sketching the sea. Julie's fortune let Daniel scale back seances. You can cut back on your little ghost tours. All right, it's fine. I got the money here. That's what I'm waiting for China to do. I'm waiting for China's fortune to set me free from talking about ghost stories on this podcast every week. In due time. Anyway, Julie's fortune let Daniel scale back seances, though he couldn't resist the occasional private showing. One guest, a French painter, recalled Daniel playfully making a teacup dance across the table as Julie laughed. A rare glimpse of domestic joy. Wow. Pretty dark tag there at the end. His health, however, gnawed at him. Childhood frailty had blossomed into chronic illness. Coughs that rattled his frame, fevers that left him weak. Doctors prescribed rest, but Daniel pushed on, driven by a need to prove his powers weren't fading. In 1872, he collapsed after a seance in London, blood staining his handkerchief.
Tuberculosis.
Uh-oh. Spoilers, damn it, Christian. Friends urged him to retire, but he smiled thinly, saying, "The spirits won't let me go. These spirits won't let me go." By the mid-1870s, Daniel's star dimmed. He returned to Britain in 1874, touring small towns with poetry readings. His voice, still rich, reciting Burns and Shelley. In 1875 in Edinburgh, he gave a seance for old friends. A violin hovered, playing a mournful tune, but he tired quickly, leaning on Julie for support. That year he wrote, quote, "Incidents in My Life," a memoir defending his gifts. Critics panned it as self-aggrandizing, classic, but it sold modestly, offering him a final word. In 1878, he moved to Auteuil, France. Auteuil, E-U-I-L. Wow, Auteuil, France. A quiet suburb of Paris. There he lived simply, tending a garden and teaching Grisha English. Neighbors found him charming, but odd. One recalled him staring at the sky, murmuring to unseen figures. Hell yeah. His last seance came in 1882 for a local doctor. A clock chimed without being wound, and Daniel smiled, saying, "They're still with me." By 1885, he was bedridden, his lungs failing. And on June 21st, 1886, at 53, he died peacefully, Julie and Grisha at his side, his tombstone reading, "To another discerning of spirits." What do you take away from this man, Christian? Let's break up this story a little bit. Give me your thoughts. Mr. Hume.
I don't see anything that really makes me feel like he wasn't anything other than a magician, if that makes sense.
I don't know. Because going back to the whole, do magicians just do stuff willy-nilly? Or don't you have to set that type of stuff up? You look at someone like Chris Angel or what's that Dave dude? Don't they have to set this stuff up somehow?
Yeah.
You got the whole crew and all that. You're doing this crazy stuff to provide this illusion, right?
But these are modern guys that are more like Houdini in a way, that put on the whole show and stuff like that. This guy's a little less showy with what he's doing.
And he's also from the 1800s. If you can get away with this stuff in the 1800s, literally you're making teacups dance across the table. making stuff fly around the room. You're bringing out voices from thin air of people's dead loved ones that you don't even know these people.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
If he did all this stuff, shouldn't someone like you and I know his name?
No, because that's exactly what would happen if there was someone that did all this stuff. Is it get buried? It'd get buried. But it gets suppressed. Nobody wants that. Like that. Let me just get conspiratorial for a moment here. The powers that be. Didn't
you say that he knew Shelley? Arthur Conan Doyle knew of him, and all the other writers you mentioned.
I don't think I mentioned Arthur Conan Doyle either. Have you? Are you just naming writers at this point? Do you remember?
No, actually, I was looking up something about him, and I saw Arthur.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that might be on your end then. But yeah, for me, I don't. I mean, he mentioned Dickens, and then the dude from what's that?
Well, basically, he knew the most famous authors of the time because, like, when you mentioned Robert Browning and his wife,
they were in this. Yes,
Barrett Browning. Yeah, I can't remember her first name, but I knew the name when you said it.
Yeah, too many B's.
Yeah, so I would think if some of this stuff legitimately happened, we'd know more about it. Now, could it be tricks that have been embellished over the 100 and something years since then?
Sure.
Maybe. Could he have been able to do some of these things? You know, if he could, why is he wasting his time lifting up a glass or a violin and not making bank?
As a trick, how do you make a harp play itself?
Oh, well,
you know, like
did the harp play an actual song? Because I get the feeling maybe he didn't know how to play a musical instrument just by listening to his upbringing. You know, a lot of times playing a musical instrument back then was a little bit more difficult than picking up a horn at school.
Sure. So you're saying
being in band.
If the harp was just like plink, plunk, plink, 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 plunk, then,
I mean,
he probably didn't know. It was probably some kind of magic trick.
If the harp was doing that, then he was plucking it somehow.
Yes.
You know, if it was playing an actual song that the people of that time period knew or
there was a ghost.
Appreciate it was something. Or as that minister said, it's either God or the devil, which is actually the only answer you can give when you're a minister, especially back then.
Well, there are two options, folks. I'll give them both to you. Yeah.
Does it taste good? Did you like it? That's the devil.
Yes. Was it a tough pill to swallow? That's our Lord and Savior, but it's fine. Yeah, I think.
And for those of you folks, that was purely a joke, but kind of.
It works both ways.
Yeah.
It's fine, folks. Yeah, I don't know. Like, again, we bring up the fact he didn't take money. It's not like he was trying to, like there's so many grifters out there. This dude was like, it seems like he genuinely just wanted to prove to people that he has powers and that the world is crazy or there's spirits among us. Or so like in that regard, like I don't know.
This kind of stuff was a big deal back during the Victorian era.
Yeah.
Which is what this is. And if you guys didn't find out what the Victorian era, it's basically the time Queen Victoria served or ruled over England.
The name fits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like it seemed, I guess I'm conflicted because obviously there are magicians that do things, sleight of hand is a thing.
Weird. And it's pretty impressive when you see it.
It is. Yes. However, it's hard for me to believe like everything that has been like, this has been pretty much just a bullet point of all the crazy things this dude did in his life for the wealthy and everything around him. So it's kind of hard for me to think that he's just some kind of weird random street magician that happened to take in a wealthy crowd,
I mean, it happened a lot back then. A lot of people could find themselves in places that a normal person shouldn't. Do you remember
Growing Pains?
Oh, I remember that.
Same.
That was a good show.
It was.
I once saw Tracy Gold at a hockey rink.
I wish I knew who that was.
She was in Growing Pains, Kirk Cameron's sister.
Very nice.
She married a person that played for the Kings for like 2 games before he got injured.
ADHD, the podcast here in living color.
Yeah, Pavel Bure's brother.
Yes, I do remember the Berets.
Valerie.
I
wonder if he knew this guy. Hume.
He probably
Russian.
did, based on everyone in the world knowing this guy at some point in time.
It is kind of weird how many people he knew.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder if he was like almost like a jester to the rich and famous back then. Like, oh, let's be entertained by this, I was going to say monkey.
Wow. Shots fired.
Because that's kind of how rich people sometimes treat the commoners.
Yeah.
If they're somewhat interesting.
But is it like a jester or is it just someone that has like a personality that's kind of like,
I'm
know?
just saying jester because jesters were, hundreds of years before this. But
sure.
the king would
Bring out
keep
someone.
a jester around to entertain him.
And who wouldn't if you had that kind of money, you know?
Or power.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's a fun story. Most of those stories from back then are embellished a lot to sell newspapers. Surprise, surprise, it was like that back then. Actually, it was worse back then than it is.
But if you also
nowadays.
think about it, like throughout the course of history, on all the writings that have ever happened, how many of them are actually factual, you know? How many of them can you trace back and be like, oh, this was real? Or this wasn't just some dude trying to build up some of his... Yeah, but so how can we trust anything, you know?
I feel like you should understand this word I'm about to use. Faith. Sometimes that's the only thing you can do to trust things because there's not evidence.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like history and stories all throughout time and space. You know, this is no different than any of the other crazy ones in the past. At what point do we just say, okay, I guess everything was fake? You know, like if we can't trust anything, we trust nothing, you know?
Sometimes I wonder if that would be better for us.
If we just believe that nothing in the past was real.
I mean, it was obviously real, but maybe we shouldn't trust the people that...
The government? No,
not just... Guys. We just shouldn't always trust the people that provide the information. It's the same thing now. I mean, we whine about it now all the time, depending on what you're doing or watching or how you take in your information about the world around you.
So wouldn't it be much better to believe stories like this?
It would be a lot more fun.
That isn't that what we're trying to do here, Christian?
That is, but... There's a part of my brain that won't let me completely accept this one because we don't have much information.
I wonder if I could get my hands on a book about this guy.
I'm sure you can.
Like someone that like just did a deep dive on his life, you know?
There is an autobiography, or not a biography.
It might be time.
You sure you want to read something from back then?
I mean, it's going to be hard, but you know what? It's fine.
It was self-aggrandizing anyway.
That's what you hear.
I mean, but if you're going to be part of a book written about you, that's self-aggrandizing.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you do it in a way that's sickening or you're just like, this is what I did.
I just like to picture someone sitting in a study with a cigar as someone asks them questions about their life. And then they're like, oh, yes, of course, the early years.
I don't think he would have been sitting in a library with a cigar, considering he had tuberculosis and he was frail to begin with.
Yeah, but if you have tuberculosis at that point, you're like, well, might as well just get it over with, you know? Might as well just speed this thing up, you know?
It's crazy how, like, prevalent tuberculosis used to be.
Everyone died of it. Every single person.
I mean, people believe in vampires probably because of tuberculosis.
And maybe vampires believe in tuberculosis because of...
I don't know, actually. I had some smart-ass comment.
There was no ending for that. I was hoping I could pull it around. There's no ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's kind of hard to joke about tuberculosis.
I find it actually very easy because it's not something that people die of very often these days.
In this country.
Okay.
TB's making a comeback, man, I heard.
Am I supposed to be concerned for every living person on planet Earth? Because that's a lot. That's a pretty heavy burden to bear, you know? But let me just have fun where I'm at. My life isn't great either, all right? It's not fantastic.
I'm concerned for every human being on the planet.
Yeah,
I just don't spend much time
thinking about it.
Well, because you can't. There's too many.
Exactly. So then you're not concerned, you know?
No, I want everybody to have a happy life. Kumbaya.
Wow. Yeah, everyone join hands around the world like all the...
I'd like to buy the world a Coke.
Wow.
Or some Coke. Which was
Probably some Coke.
No, I don't. Not anymore.
It seems like you might want to buy the world some Coke.
I actually don't. I do not condone fentanyl use.
Wow.
Shots fired. I am wrong. Big shout out to Scott.
Might as well. That was right next to it.
Who just had to edit out all those things so we don't get demonetized.
No, fuck it. At this point, you know, who cares? Who cares?
I would.
What, are we not going to get that 37 cents for this?
I would take it as a badge of honor if they ever came at us and said, this one's demonetized because of what you said. I hope it's something I said, not you.
It would be hilarious if it was something you said. Me, who
you'd be
pretty much says something offensive or wrong every episode that is, well, morally or not morally. What is it?
Hey, Nicotine Scott, calm down. It's
Nicotine Scott is, you know, in the past, I am non-smoker Scott. Isn't that something? I keep wanting to get back to a cigarette. I'm like, I could really go for a cigarette, but then I know, I'm like, it's all a lie anyway, man. It doesn't make you less stressed. It actually just keeps you stressed out more.
To me, it reminds me of like investing in future stress.
Well,
like if you were investing in the stock market, you're investing in future stress as you suffer through the health problems you're going to have in the future.
Sure.
And you make your whole family have to pay your medical bills.
I mean, that ain't me. I just invest in Fartcoin. So I'm going to go ahead and close this bad boy out.
Bonk is where it's at, man. Bonk.
Apparently. Who's to say? You know, by the time this comes out.
Come on, bro.
Maybe we're both broke. Anyway, Daniel Dunglas Home left behind a riddle no one fully solved.
We sure didn't.
Well, That seems to be the running theme for this show.
I mean, I always solve this stuff, but some people just aren't ready for the truth.
Wow. Speaking into a mirror as he says that, some people just aren't ready for the truth. His feats, tables rising, voices from nowhere, flames tamed, drew gasps from kings and scholars alike. Scientists like Elliotson and Wells saw something real, while skeptics like Dickens and Sidgwick saw smoke and mirrors.
I felt like one of those guys that we called a scientist in this episode. I'm pretty sure you said he was a physician.
Is that not a form of science?
I don't think you... And maybe it was different back then, but typically I don't think you get to call yourself a scientist if you're a doctor. You may have studied the sciences.
Are you kidding me? Doctor is also what we call certain scientists.
Do they submit for their papers for peer review?
Probably.
Do they do experiments? And
sure, why not?
Okay. I mean, I could be wrong.
1800s? I mean, come on, man. Of course.
I could be wrong.
In the 1800s, they'd chop off a ball just to see if it cured you of tuberculosis, right?
1800s, they're like, I wonder if this guy would live longer if we cut off this limb he just lost in the Civil War.
There you go.
Well, that one died of infection, but this guy is limping around just fine.
Yeah, well done, doctor. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. The bar was probably pretty low, but it's fine.
Actually, and to take it back then, doctors and barbers were basically the same thing.
The times have not been great to barbers then. If doctors are making bank these days and barbers are making, well, probably bank. Have you gotten a haircut recently? It's like $40 freaking dollars. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Get back to $7 haircuts. All right. I don't know who I'm talking to out there, but someone do it. It's time.
You can get a $7 haircut in prison.
And you can get free room and board. Wow. Turns out prison's where it's at.
It's not really free. There's certain things
free for us.
Certain things you got to do in those places to keep the peace. And
or like spread your cheeks or drop the soap. All this and more can be free to a person near you if you're willing to do the crime and the time, turns out. And the therapy later on in life. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up.
Yeah, finish it up.
So while skeptics like Dickens and Sidgwick saw smoke and mirrors, he welcomed tests performed in daylight and never hid behind curtains, yet no one caught him in a lie. His supporters called him a prophet of the afterlife, and his detractors a trickster too clever to trap.
See, that's kind of where I'm at with this guy.
Exactly, because you don't have any evidence of or anything to hold against him, you know?
I do.
Like what?
I've never heard of this guy. If he was that good, I would have heard of him because I've been involved.
Well, who are you? You know, I mean, at
somebody
the same time,
that spent most of his life looking into things like this.
I don't know.
Even if I'm more skeptical now than I used to be,
sure,
I've been looking into this stuff since I was a little kid.
Well, that does have about 16,000 years on our man Daniel Hume here, but
and this guy interacted with people I know of from history. I haven't heard of him from them.
Do they speak? Are they with us in the room right now?
No,
Christian?
but you would think that they would have mentioned something. And he did parlor tricks. Save somebody from imminent death. Predict Queen Victoria's death or one of her. You know, he spent a lot of time in Russia. He should have told us that Rasputin was coming and was going to screw up the world.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I mean, you talk about him being in the company of some greats, right?
Right.
Who is this guy? And compared to the rest of these people's lives that, like, when you're reading about them, why would you hear about a random magician that happened to be, you know, showing up for a couple days to do, you know, make furniture dance across the room?
That's what I mean. If he had these powers, could he have used them for something other than entertaining the rich folk?
Like
I mean, and I don't want to judge him because maybe they were making it, you know, possible for him to have a decent life. Maybe that was his job, even though he says he didn't take money. I'm sure there were benefits. Got my ass chewed. Yeah, he got 2 wives out of the scenario.
That is true. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think like you'd hear about him so much in these other people's lives because their lives are like, you know, royalty and nobility and whatnot. And like this dude's just some dude, you know?
I also feel like some of these people would have made him a character in a book. So it'd be interesting, or a story. It would be interesting to see if anybody did that. And other than Robert Browning, who obviously didn't like him because of his wife.
Classic. Yeah. That's what you do. Anyway.
And I want to know more about his son.
Where's Grisha at?
You know, that was why I was looking something up. I was like, that's a weird name.
Grisha.
Georgiev. Grisha is his Russian nickname. Maybe that's short for...
Nicknames are weird in other countries. You know?
Yeah, maybe that's short for Georgia, because I've heard that name before.
Grisha. Yeah.
In a previous life when I lived in St. Petersburg.
Wow.
It was cold.
Made it up.
I met Peter the Great.
made it up.
And then Catherine the Great. And you should hear about her and her horse.
Sounds pretty great. Anyway, today his name fades, but his story lingers in dusty journals and seance lore. Was he a conduit to the beyond, blessed by his mother's visions, or a showman who turned frailty into magic? The debate endures as it did in his lifetime, a testament to a man who lived between worlds, one foot on Earth, the other somewhere else entirely. That's about all I got on Mr. Hume. But I'm actually very curious to our listeners at home or in the car or in the shower, wherever you are.
You're in the shower. I see you.
Wow. Perverted. Hopefully it's a big dude. Anyway, have you guys heard of Daniel Dunglas Home? And are you as annoyed by his middle name as I am? Or do you have forgiveness in your hearts?
There's a lot of people have more forgiveness in their hearts than you, Scott.
It sure does seem that way.
Well, I've already said my piece, but
I just want to know if anyone has heard of this dude. Like,
Yeah,
'cause I thought when I found this out, I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
well, what's crazy is that we've never heard about this guy is because of where the circles he was in.
Yeah.
I feel like I would have heard something, and maybe I have and just don't recognize. Maybe I thought it was Douglas and not Dunglass, and maybe that's why I don't remember.
And you thought his last name was Home, but it's Hume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. That's all I got.
That's not all he's got. I got to tell you a story about something I experienced at work today.
Is this after dark?
No, but it
could be.
I mean, your imaginations may take you there, but that's up to you.
All right, go ahead.
So it seemed like this guy and his mother came in today. Got my ass chewed. We are going to talk about ass here in just a second. This guy is probably, he's older than me, 60s, 70s, probably 60s. Could have been my age.
Wildly younger than you are, Christian, but all right.
But the lady with him seemed way older.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not why I'm telling you the story.
Okay.
The story is the attire this person chose to wear.
Where's this going?
Very tight leather shorts.
Hell yeah.
And a spiked collar around his neck.
Punk rock or like dominatrix weird leather daddy thing?
It's more the second.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't want to label it.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, maybe it's an old punk rocker.
Did you ask him if he likes Blink 182?
Blink 182 is not punk rock. That's like pop music.
Bruh, you got to get to the bottom of this, all right? You got to start somewhere. Blink 182, all right? I'm not, if you think I'm going like way back, way back punk, hell no. That shit is annoying. It is so obnoxious.
Do they call Blink 182 punk?
Growing up, like my generation would refer to them as like pop punk, yeah.
Oh, that makes me, that's gross. That's pop
gross.
music.
Yeah.
That's like rock Britney Spears is what Blink 182 is.
Sure. And no one's denying that, but like your guys' punk back in the day was garbage. Like it just didn't sound good.
I agree. That's the whole point of punk.
So you have to add pop to make it kind of funky. And you're like, okay, yeah, this is dope. You know, that's why pop. It's like the cranberry juice of the music world. Pop goes into everything and makes the genre better.
Here's my problem with Blink 182. Whoever was singing always sounded like they were just some whiny little.
Yeah.
That's not punk.
That's Tom DeLonge. How is that not punk? Punk is whining about everything, dude.
Punk is anger.
No, punk is complaining.
It is complaining.
It's just complaining. That's
Actually,
it.
I think punk is past complaining. Punk is more like, there's no reason to complain. They all suck. Let's do anarchy. So anyway, I don't know. I just had to tell somebody my story about these shorts that kind of made me uncomfortable. And, you know,
did it make you a little sweaty? Where you're like, hey, whoa.
Not as sweaty as what was in those shorts.
Oh, yeah, probably.
It's
Yeah.
just.
Nobody wants to imagine that.
I mean, I would expect to see that more, say, in California in certain areas.
Sure.
It was just really, give the guy credit, walking around Wasilla, Alaska.
I will not do that. No.
And it also would have been cool if this person looked cool.
But he didn't.
It just looked wrong. It looked wrong. That's what bothered me.
Do you think the old lady made him? Do you think the old lady was like, "You're gonna wear this"?
I've seen this guy before, and it was similar. It was probably about a year ago.
Wow, the questions, you know. That's our next podcast. We need to bring in weird people off the street and ask them about their choices.
You know,
like, what made you do this?
If I would have known how to bridge the subject, I might have, because I'm curious about why people make choices like that. Like,
yeah. You're like, hey, actually, I got similar shorts at the leather emporium down the street. Where did you get yours at?
I do not have leather shorts, nor have I ever. I've had one leather jacket in my whole life.
Did you happen to get that spiked necklace from Claire's in Walmart? I'm shopping for my granddaughter.
I have a spiked necklace.
Yeah.
No, I don't. No, I just wanted to.
I don't know, Christian, you pulled it back pretty quick there.
Part of my words in describing this story just can't confer what it was like. Because, like, I don't care what people wear.
Yeah, you do.
It just looked weird.
It's okay to care what people wear. I know it's not you, but if someone enters your space and they're completely weirded out, you're like, it's okay for you to be like, nah, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you an asshole. We can say it. It's just your personal preference, whatever.
Yeah. In this case, it was like, I'm like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
And I look over at one of my coworkers and they kind of made eye contact with me and kind of gave me the look. And I was like, don't laugh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to be a dick.
It's same if you're in like Walmart or something like that and you see like one of those just gargantuanly obese people with their fat hanging out underneath their shirt. And you're like, bro, you didn't want to just, you know that that's there.
But also, after a while, you don't care.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Because life is too hard to worry about shit like
People
that.
People probably think that I leave the house in sweats 9 times out of 10. All right.
Why the hell would you do that? That is hideous.
Well, the
sweats are for the gym.
Is joggers. So technically,
you millennials have to come up with a reason to wear sweats.
It's about comfort. All right. That's all it is. It's comfort. I'm going to be comfortable if I'm at home. And if I'm leaving home, if it's not my job, I'm going to be comfortable there too. Your boy's got it kind of figured out, this system of life. And the rest of it blows, but the comfort thing is pretty great.
I guess.
It's pretty great. And with that, guys, we'll leave you.
Scott always adds something weird at the end, so it was my turn.
That was me. Oh, okay, yeah.
It was my turn.
I thought my sweatpants, and you're like, well, that's crazy. And I'm like, you were just talking about leather daddy shorts, and what, spiky necklace?
I would like to say the aversion to sweatpants outside of working out came from me, but my sister reminded me when my dad passed away and we found this big stash of sweats that my dad hated sweats.
But he secretly had a bunch?
I guess so.
Maybe he secretly loved sweats.
Well, he was also very unhealthy the last few years of his life. So, again, at some point, comfort and ease comes into it.
Could be the Brotherhood of the Traveling Sweats. That's the podcast name right there. Brotherhood of the Traveling Joggers. It's fine. Guys, get out of here. You're not welcome here anymore. Goodbye.
You are welcome here, but you got to keep it down.
Yeah, I'm trying to sleep. Goodbye. We'll see you next week where Christian, I guess, is talking about Bigfoot.
Finally getting back to Bigfoot.
We're talking about Bigfoot. Yeah. Goodbye.
Bigfoot is stalking by your window. Dog man is scratching at your door. Ghosties are walking up and down your halls at night, and the Hat Man is coming back for more. Your name is Christian, you love a can of beans, and you're the wettest blanket skeptic this world has ever seen. You're almost always wrong, it's quite impressive, streaky. This song has rambled on too long. Welcome to the Freaky Deaky. Your name is Christian, your name ironically, cause the only belief you have can be found in a can of beans. Yeah. You're almost never right, and now you get roasted weekly. This song has rambled on too long. Welcome to the Freaky Deaky. So ghosts exist, just an FYI. Aliens are feeling blue. Ricci demons lonely because they believe in you. love a can of beans, and you're the wettest blanket skeptic this world has ever seen. You're almost always wrong, it's quite impressive streaky. This song is ramble on too long. Welcome to the freaky deaky. Your name is Christian, you're named ironically because the only belief you have can be found in a can of beans. You're almost never right, and now you get roasted weekly. This song has rambled on too long. Welcome to the freaky deaky. Also ghosts exist, just an FYI. Aliens are feeling blue. The Ouija demon's lonely because they believe in you. Your name is Christian,